Hey, everybody, and welcome to Before College TV. I'm Harlan Cohen. Today, it's another college conversation with Stanford University students. Hello, panel. How are you?
Doing good.
You guys are pretty pumped. This is exciting. We've got students from all over the country. We've got Illinois represented. We've got, I believe, Louisiana. That's right, Jacob, right? And then, Jasmine, you are in Grapevine, Texas.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's hot everywhere, and it's the summer. So, Jasmine, tell me, you are the person who was so helpful in putting our conversation together today. So you know Jacob and Grayson. I don't know Jacob and Grayson. Can you explain your relationship with these two people?
Sure. So we all lived in the same freshman dorm last year. We were neighbors, so they were roommates, and I lived like right next to them. That's kind of how we met. And then like us and like a kind of just like a group of people in the dorm just like became friends, started hanging out a lot. Yeah, so we just kind of became friends that way from like being neighbors, and now we hang out a lot. They still live together, but I live somewhere else now.
Wow, is that how you guys remember this?
Yeah, basically.
I'm all right.
What residence hall? So Jasmine, for people who aren't familiar with just how the living arrangements are at Stanford, kind of give me an idea of what that hall is like. Are you next door to Jacob and Grayson, or are you down the hall? Is it a different floor? Fill me in.
Yeah, so we lived in Florence Moore, or people call it Flomo at Stanford. So it's like in the middle of campus. So most freshmen live on East Campus in either Wilbur or Stern, which are two big complexes that have a lot of dorms. But we lived in Alondra, which is the only all freshman dorm in Flomo. So Flomo has 6 dorms, and one of them is all freshmen. So that's where we lived. And our floor was co-ed, so boys and girls lived on the same floor. So they were my next door neighbors. So they live right next to me.
Yeah. Was it hard to make friends, or was it easy for you?
Um, I don't know. I think it was pretty easy because Stanford does a really good job of cultivating community, especially with the resident assistants or the RAs that are in our dorms. I mean, like from the moment you step on campus during new student orientation, there's all these like activities and community gatherings, like with the people in your dorm. So you're just like automatically pushed into this really strong community in the dorm. So I feel like they purposely do that to try and make it easier for everybody to, I guess, acclimate to Stanford. But yeah, so I found it pretty easy to make friends.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
it was a good time.
And now Jacob and Grayson, did you know anyone at Stanford when you got on campus?
I knew absolutely nobody.
Now, is that comforting or is that intimidating?
I think for me at least, it was comforting because I feel like an institution like Stanford, it's kind of the case with most people that they know maybe 1 or 2 people, but generally they don't know many people. So everyone's in the mood to find their group of people, their friends. And so
Yeah.
it made making friends a lot easier because like everyone was trying to make friends rather than just you.
I would think especially at Stanford because there are so few people who get in that it's hard for you to go there with your best friend or with someone who you already know. Now, Grayson, I was looking at your Instagram and I think I saw the day you got in to Stanford. Maybe
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was pretty. You were. I'm gonna put it up when we show this, but you seemed stunned. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Was not really expecting to get in, but I figured I'd apply anyway. And so
So
it was a nice
did
surprise.
any of you expect to get in?
I don't know. I think I don't know if expected is the right word, but I feel like Stanford was my dream school for a while. So all of the things that I did was like really working towards this one goal. So I think while there's some people who are like, I don't think I'm gonna get in, but I'm just gonna try. But for me, I was like, I really want to get in. Like I'm gonna do everything I can, like put in all my energy. And so I felt like I had the support of a lot of people around me, kind of like pumping me up. And I guess my mentality too was like, if I think about getting in, like it'll help me reach that goal. So
Really?
I don't know. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but that's like kind of what I was feeling during that time.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that because I've talked to lots of students at some of the most selective schools, and from the conversations I've had, you are the only person who I have met who said like, I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna get in, and I'm gonna do everything I can, and it was really important. I mean, like, and you did it. right? Like you did it. That's crazy because only, I mean, you guys all know, but for people who aren't familiar, I mean, Stanford is known, I think you are the most selective school, only about 4% acceptance rate. And just to kind of give you guys a sense, and you probably already know this, but for the class of 2023, there were 47,498 applicants, 2,062 students were admitted, and then 1,701 students actually enrolled. So there were like 300 that probably, maybe it was money that was an issue, or like they went somewhere else. I don't know how you go somewhere else. Like once you get in, like, don't you just go to Stanford? Is that how it works?
You know,
I think
I
a
wish
lot of
that
people,
was the case.
a lot of people who get into Stanford also get into a lot of other great schools. And so I think most of those 300 are choosing a different school over Stanford just because they would prefer that one. Because I mean, you mentioned money, but Stanford has a really good financial aid program, as do many other schools with large endowments. And so coming from a rural area, actually, I think that's super important. I wish Stanford would publicize that more, is that financial aid is actually great here. Like I wouldn't be at Stanford without the financial aid package that I got. And it makes it an opportunity that people who think they can't afford it, they probably can afford it, but don't know. So I think most of those 300 people actually just chose different schools over Stanford.
Right. And then there's so many who probably didn't apply because they hear a conversation like this about most people not getting in. And also the price tag is so expensive, but you're not paying that. So Grayson, it's really cool behind you. We talked about this a little bit before we went live. Those are grain silos. Can you direct me over your shoulder and explain to me what I'm seeing?
Right. So I live on a dairy farm in Southern Illinois, and people ask how far from Chicago. I mean, like 4.5 hours south of Chicago, so towards the southern end. But behind me, if you see here, the barn is that way. So the cows are all that way. And then these silos here are what we've used to feed them. So one of them has, this one right here that I'm pointing at has haylage, which is alfalfa, fermented alfalfa to feed the cows. And then this one has corn silage, which is the entire corn plant shoved into the silo. So that's also to feed the cows. And then these grain bins here have just straight corn and soybeans.
Right. And then, so when you aren't here, are you working the farm in the morning? Or do you have to do jobs on the farm?
Well, I worked on the farm every summer up until college, all the way through high school to save up. So I wouldn't actually have to have a job during college. And so that's actually paying off now, is that I don't actually have to work outside anymore because I already did my time, and now I'm doing other work for over the summer.
Yeah.
But I used to, yeah.
That's so cool. I love that you're there. I'm from Chicago, so I drive south all the time. And I always see these like beautiful, are those like the blue ones? Are those the blue grain silos?
Yeah.
Those are the fancy ones, right?
I don't really know. We've always had those. So I don't really know.
Because when I drive, I'm like, I see the blue, there's like these really nice blue ones. And I'm like, man, that's a fancy silo. But I guess those are standard. That's just what it is, man. So when it comes to getting in, because I want to talk about, of course, life on campus, but I really want to dig into that getting in and explaining who you were in high school and how you were able to put yourself in a position to go to Stanford and why you decided to go to Stanford and where else did you get in? I want people to understand that process. And if you got rejected from other schools, that's beautiful. Did any of you get rejected from anywhere else? Yes. Jacob. Oh, and you did too, Jasmine.
Yes,
wow.
I got rejected from one school.
Which one? Can we talk about it?
Yeah, I got rejected from Berkeley, which is like Stanford's rival. And that was kind of interesting because a lot of people, at least that live in California, like that are really smart, they're like, oh, Berkeley's my safety school, and then I'm going to like try to get into Stanford and like other top schools. But I guess like coming from out of state and coming from Texas, like people don't get into Berkeley as much. But yeah, so I didn't get into our rival school.
Wow. Did that surprise you or bother you?
I think I was a little surprised, but I mean, it was fine. I had gotten into Stanford early, so I got in like in December of my senior year, and I got rejected from Berkeley like in March after I had kind of already decided I was going to Stanford. So I wasn't like too upset about it. Yeah, it was fine. Yeah.
And I love talking about rejection because again, there's there's so many people who struggle to even think that they're worthy. And I want to dig deeper into that. Jacob, so where did you get rejected from?
So I applied to about 10 schools and I got rejected from 6.
Oh, good. Okay. So can you do rapid fire of where you applied and, where you got in?
I got rejected from Washington University in St. Louis, MIT, Johns Hopkins, Columbia, others. Sorry.
Is that a school? Is others university?
Others university. Yeah. And actually, Stanford. I applied to all of these regular decision, and so Stanford was the very last decision for me to come out, and so it was like kind of heartbreaking for like the whole month of March. Just
you got devastated.
Rejection letter, and then like on March 31st or something when Stanford's came out, it was like just amazing. And I would say, like, just for everyone out there who is applying to college and worried about rejection, I would say, like, try not to worry about it too much. I feel like, especially at Stanford, there's a certain culture that Stanford has, and you can really kind of see it in the application questions. And I didn't really realize it beforehand, but now that I'm here, I like really understand why they ask each of the questions that they do. And I'm sure it's the same for every school. And sometimes those questions will really just fit with you very well. And I think that just happened.
Can you give some examples of that? Because I think it's really interesting that there are so many schools that didn't want you that are less selective, but then the most selective. And where else did you get in, just to kind of give me a sense?
Yeah, so Louisiana State University, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and then another smaller school in Louisiana.
Which one?
LA Tech.
Okay. I mean, I think it's for that person who's in Louisiana, it really tells a great story. And then when you, so then the questions, you said there were some questions they asked, Jacob.
Yeah.
Will you help us understand what that means?
So a big thing at Stanford is this concept of intellectual vitality. And it's hard for me to explain. So maybe if Grayson or Jasmine have a better understanding of it, feel free to jump in. But it's like this idea that like you do things for the sake of doing it and because you're curious. And so one of the questions that they asked us about was like something that we had done either in school or out of school that like really excited our intellect. And so I wrote about in a coding class I had taken, like writing a prime number generator and like figuring out what, like between 1 and 1,000, what numbers were prime and that kind of thing. And like, I've had this thing with prime numbers my entire life. And it's like this whole idea, like a lot of people when they're watching TV, they want their volume on like an even number or a multiple of 5. I'm shooting just for prime numbers and that kind of thing. And so for me, it just like fit very well with something that I was super interested in and was actually able to share a lot about and got very personal with.
Yeah. So I noticed that your name has 2 prime numbers in it when I count the letters.
It's, some things just work out.
Yeah. Is that one of the deeply personal parts of your prime love?
No, I actually hadn't noticed it until you just now pointed it out.
No way, man. Really? That's crazy. Wow. I'm so glad that I could offer that insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So Grayson, explain to me your college journey or the college search journey in high school and if you were driven by an intellectual curiosity or if there was something else that was the driving force.
So mine's kind of different. So my family's like a big University of Illinois family, like UIUC. Because both my parents went there and met there, and 2 of my siblings went there. I have 3 siblings, so 2 of them went there. And I kind of had just like banked on going there. I was like going through high school, kind of just cruising through, being like, all right, going to go to U of I. Aerospace engineering there is like really good. And so I had kind of figured to go there. I had not thought of Stanford at all. First of all, because financial aid, I thought it would be too expensive. And then also, I didn't know that Stanford was Division I for the NCAA. And that was like a baseline requirement for a college for me. I was not going to go to college that was not D1
really?
Because I wanted that sports experience, like to go to football games and go to basketball games and such. And so actually, when application season opened, I had just decided that I wasn't gonna apply to Stanford because it wasn't what I wanted. And then I mentioned to my dad just like offhand how like Stanford, I didn't want to go because it wasn't D1. And then he was like, "Are you kidding me? Stanford is like definitely D1, like so good at a lot of things." And then I was like, "Oh, well, in that case, like maybe I should apply here then because it is a good school and it's D1." So like, okay. So I applied to it early, restrictive early action, which is the same thing Jasmine did.
Okay.
And you get your decision in December instead of in March where like regular decision gets it. And so I applied to Stanford early, and then I applied to Georgia Tech and U of I regular. And I got into Stanford and got the aid package, and I was like, all right, I'm going here. So I wasn't really worrying about it after that. So
Yeah.
after December, I checked out.
So when you do that, when you apply early action, is that a binding decision?
So Stanford's is not. It's basically all it means is that if you apply early to Stanford, you can't apply early to any other private schools. So if you apply early to Stanford, you cannot apply early to Harvard. You can apply regular decision to Harvard or Columbia or any of those, but you can't apply early to more than one if you choose Stanford.
Right. And then when it came to the aid, so you get accepted. So for someone who's going through this process, you apply EA, and then you get accepted. And how do you know how much you're going to pay? How quickly do you get that information?
They send you a letter with your acceptance that has your predicted financial aid package that you'll get. And if you see it and you think that's good enough, then that's like great. But if you think that you should get a little more, you think that that's not enough to support you through that time, you can actually reach out to the financial aid office and like ask them if they could give more. And like it's kind of like a negotiation process that if you feel like your package isn't large enough, that you could talk to them and they have an open ear and they're willing to talk to you about it.
Did you have to do that?
I didn't know. My package was definitely good enough, and so I didn't touch it. But I just know that that's like an option.
Right. Did you ever think, any of you, that it was a mistake, like that they screwed up when you got in? Or Jacob was like, yes. Grace said to Jasmine, you were confident, but Jacob, did you ever double check just to make sure?
Yeah. So I actually like refreshed the email like 3 times, waiting for it to like unsend. And then it just like leads to this like bigger idea at Stanford of something called Imposter Syndrome, which is like the idea that in a place as excellent as Stanford, that you don't really belong and that like maybe you are the mistake that got in. And like, I can't speak exactly for Jasmine and Grayson, but I'm sure they have felt this way before. And some like large majority of Stanford students do feel this way. And like, it's kind of interesting, I think, that as you've mentioned, we have this like exceptional application pool, and then like very few students are being chosen, and then yet we all, or a lot of us still feel this way, that we don't belong.
Then when did you feel that for the first time, and how were you able to work through that feeling?
Oh yeah, I can chemistry, Chem 33, organic chemistry. That was the strongest time that I felt it, just like because it's a very difficult class, and just not a lot of it made sense to me. And through high school, most things kind of just made sense right away. And it was really eye-opening to think about like my own study habits and like things that I could do. And I think the biggest thing that like helped me through it was just like talking to friends and seeing like, hey, I feel like I'm really struggling in this class. Can you help? And turns out a lot of people can. And like everyone has that subject that maybe they're not as strong in and they'll need help in. And realizing that everyone's kind of going through that same thing of finding maybe one particular class that they find extremely difficult, and like them also going through the process of needing help.
Did you fail? Like, did you get an F?
No.
What? Oh, and on a quiz? You had to have gotten like an F on a quiz or a D.
Oh yeah, I got like a 20% on like my first midterm on it.
On your midterm?
Yeah.
We love to see
luckily, the class is like extremely hard, so the average score is like a 60 or a 50, something like that.
Whoa.
And so the curve just really saved me there.
When you see a 20%, do you vomit? What happens to you?
Pretty close. My eyes start tearing up. I like call my parents. I'm sure if they were here, they could tell you. Like I called them that night. Like, Mom, I'm not sure I can do this.
Were you sobbing?
not quite sobbing, just like I was.
You were crying. I feel like you might have been. You just kind of pulled back the truth. Like, I mean, it's good to know that men cry.
Yeah, I was definitely crying.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I just don't think I wasn't like breaking down. I think I was mostly composed, but like tears were definitely going down my face.
Which quarter was that, Jacob?
That was winter quarter.
Was this last year?
Yes.
Yeah, this is when we were still roommates.
Oh, so you remember? Do you remember seeing him that day?
I don't remember that specific occasion, but I do remember the struggle of Chem 33 like vividly. Chem 33 is kind of a notorious class too. Like anyone in Chem 33, the normal reaction is like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So like having him in there and being his roommate, I was conscious that was a toughie.
Yeah, well, I know those weed out classes are brutal, and especially when you're around so many brilliant people, it's hard to feel great when you're not used to getting the same grades. So you're a computer science major, right, Jacob, and you had to take the chem class for.
I was originally, whenever I first went into Stanford, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I liked chemistry a lot in high school. And so I was thinking about some sort of chemistry-related thing, and that's why I was in organic chemistry. It kind of made me feel like it made me realize that it just didn't interest me anymore like it did in high school. And I think that's like one of the big reasons I am now in computer science is realizing, as our freshman advisor told us all, it's very hard to figure out what you want to do, but very easy to cross things off the list of possibilities.
I think that's great. I would imagine that would be hard. And Jasmine, you can speak to this as well, that when you are someone who sets a goal and you are exceptional and you reach that goal and you're so sure of what you want, when you realize that what you want isn't something that feels right, can you change? Are you able to do that with the mindset that gets you into a place like Stanford?
Yeah, I think you're definitely able to do that. I mean, I was kind of the same way. I started like not really knowing what I wanted to do. I probably switched majors like every like quarter pretty much.
Really?
And I was just all over the place. I was taking like freshman year, I only took classes that counted for every single major in the engineering school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I think that's really nice about Stanford is that like you're able to explore and take a lot of different things and like be totally fine. So I didn't decide my major till like the summer before sophomore year until I like decided what I want to study. And I didn't decide my minor honestly until like this quarter. Right. So you have a lot of time to kind of figure things out. And I think it's normal for even if you're a person in high school who like seems like I'm really sure what I want to do, like I have these specific interests, like until you start learning those subjects at the college level, I feel like you don't really know like if you like it or not because college is just so much harder like at any university that you go to. Yeah. So yeah.
This is a question that I always struggle with. Now, organic's really hard, and Grayson, I know you take a lot of really difficult classes too. And when you are in a class and it's so difficult, that idea of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset of I'm an organic, it's really hard. So this means that I'm not good enough, or this isn't an area where I can thrive, so I'm going to do something else. How do you process the idea of it being difficult and not wanting to weather how challenging it is, and it being difficult and me not liking it?
Right. I think for me, at least, it was like the idea of like whenever I am in a lot of my really hard classes, I will very much pay close attention in lecture because everything the professor says is very interesting to me. Like even though the concept is so insanely difficult that it might keep me up for 3 days, like it's interesting. But whenever I was in Orgo, I would like doze off during class. Like nothing the professor said made me want to be there. And I think that's the real difference for me, at least, between like being difficult and wanting to weather through it and being difficult and just realizing it's not something that I like or want to do.
I also think I would add that like expectations going in is a big thing. Like if you go into a class thinking that it's going to be like high school where you're like just going to be able to kind of half listen and still understand everything completely, like that's not the right mindset to be entering the class in. And I think that sets you up for failure. If you go into the class like expecting that this stuff's going to be hard and that you're not going to completely understand it all the time, and having the mindset that you don't have to work alone, all the problem sets and things, like there are other people who are struggling too, then that sets you up to be a lot better in that class, whether that class is a class that you enjoy or it's a class you don't enjoy. It's just better to have realistic expectations coming in, because like we've been talking about, at a place like Stanford, it's filled with people who, were valedictorians and never got a B or never even got an A- or anything. But at Stanford, or any university for that matter, it's harder to do something like that. And if you go into college expecting that everything's going to be as easy as it was in high school, you're probably kidding yourself, unless you're like a major genius. But it just makes it easier in classes to not have those unrealistic expectations to begin with, in my opinion.
When you're struggling, and anyone can answer this question, when you're struggling and you need to get help, how hard is it for you to get that help?
I can speak on this a little bit because I definitely utilize office hours a lot for all my classes. So I would say I guess it depends on what class you're in, but I would say the classes that probably you need the most help in would be STEM classes or larger lectures where it sometimes feels really overwhelming to be in a big lecture with all these people, and then you get the problem set. This happened to me so many times where I get the problem set, look at the first problem, no clue how to start. I thought I understood everything in lecture. Then I look down, I'm no idea how to start. So utilizing office hours has been a tool that I probably was a little bit ashamed of when I first started Stanford, because in high school, I never went to the teacher to ask for help or anything. But office hours has been the greatest thing of my life. So you just go, and then there's teaching assistants that can help you talk through the problem or talk through the material. And then what I really like about office hours too is that you can work with the other people that show up at office hours. They're just kind of random people that are in the class that you all want to work together. So that's really helpful. Also, taking classes with friends has been really beneficial to me. Taking classes with people that I know kind of are on my same level of thinking, and I can see we'll probably work at the same speed, so we'll get things at the same time. We can help each other on the problem sets. So yeah, teaching assistants and friends have been my main source of help and have helped me succeed in my recent classes.
How hard is it to walk into a Stanford professor's office when you're a first-year student and not know something and say, I need help? Because, I think some students feel like they should know, and asking for help is a sign that maybe they aren't worthy, which we talked about being an imposter earlier. How does someone do that? Is that not a hard thing to do, or is it challenging?
I think it's pretty hard. I've only been to 2 professor office hours ever, and I thought they were super intimidating. I think it's a little different than the TA office hours, because the professor office hours are usually only for 1 hour a week, and you feel, at least for me, I felt like I had to ask a more intellectual question, not just something rudimentary about the problem or the material. So I don't know if you guys had gone to professor office hours, but I thought they were, I still think they're kind of intimidating to go to a professor and ask them about something. So I honestly haven't utilized them that much, to be honest.
I actually disagree. I think I've, in my personal experience, obviously we haven't been seeing the same professors and stuff. I primarily see aeroastral professors. But I found them super approachable and really, really chill, actually. I think I've only called one professor by the title professor. Most of the professors here, actually, it's pretty interesting, and especially in my department, I guess, just go by their first names. And the professors are very friendly with the students. And I don't know, I found it very easy every time I've gone to office hours with professors just to walk in and shake their hand and introduce myself. But I understand it's different with different departments and different people. But I think if you have that mindset too of kind of going in there, being assertive, I deserve to be here. This is they're getting paid to do that. They're getting paid to answer your questions anyway. So yeah, but that's just been my experience. But AeroAstro is also a very small department. It's a lot easier to get buddy with the professors.
Yeah. I would say for computer science, it can be pretty intimidating, mostly because the department is one of the largest at Stanford. And so for any given professor's office hours, if it's an hour a week, there might be 100 students in line.
Oh, wow.
This professor's not teaching just one class. And for the bigger CS classes, it can be 500 students in one class. And so when a professor's teaching, let's say, even 2 classes, and it becomes 1,000 students, and they only have 1 hour a week that they're available, it can be pretty intimidating, not because seeing the professor is intimidating, but more so because just like the number of people and like the time that it will actually take to go there.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, the size. I was thinking that so many of the professionals, so many of the professors are just so knowledgeable. You know, they're the ones who are writing the books, and they're the ones whose theory, their name is the theory, or whatever research is them. So that could be intense, especially wanting to impress them. And it sounds like, Jasmine, that's been somewhat of the case, but also in the aerospace area, maybe they make themselves more accessible. So it's interesting on the personalities as well. So each of you is so unique in what you do. And I'd love for everybody watching to kind of have a sense of just some of the things you do beyond just being incredibly capable in the classroom. So Jasmine, you went to a performing and visual arts high school in Texas. And
Yes.
was that a really, this is Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. Was that a difficult school to get into?
Yes, it was really difficult. I actually didn't get in my freshman year because we have 4 different clusters, like art, music, theater, and dance. And I was applying for dance, and I was applying as an out-of-district student, and magnet schools are funded by the district, so they prioritize in-district students. So in dance, I think my class of 50 dancers, only like 4 of us were out of district, so there were only like 4 spots. So yeah, I didn't make it my first year and like had to try it again. And then I went there for sophomore through senior year.
And you got in, and now you are you're involved with the Urban Styles Jazz and Contemporary Dance Team, Alpha Phi National Sorority. Am I saying that right? I think I am, right?
Yeah.
You're an Alpha Phi, so you're in a sorority as well. Oh, I didn't realize, because you guys are in fraternities, right?
We're in the same fraternity, yeah.
Oh, nice. You guys are tight. All right, well, we're going to talk about that. That's exciting. Then also the Society of Women Engineers, which is fascinating. Being an engineer and being a woman. Do you feel like people respect you? Do you feel like you have to overcome stereotypes and judgment? Is that something that's impacted you?
It hasn't impacted me that much. I would say I think there's some experiences that I've heard from other people, like certain professors are like a little more old-fashioned and are like can be sexist in some of the ways that they conduct classes, but I haven't personally experienced any of that. Yeah. I think there's a lot of really strong women on Stanford's campus, and Society of Women Engineers is just one of the many like women professional groups that we have on campus. And I mean, even sometimes just like when I'm in Society of Women Engineers, like at different events, like it can kind of be intimidating just because there's so many like powerful women around and like doing great things. And I don't know. Yeah. So it's been a very positive experience for me to be like a woman of color in engineering at Stanford thus far.
Yeah. When has your race, ethnicity, gender, when have you felt someone reject you solely because of the way you look or just something that's a fundamental part of you? Have you encountered that in any way?
I feel like I encountered that more like growing up, but at Stanford, I haven't really encountered that. I feel like Stanford really celebrates diversity, and I guess, I don't know. Yeah.
About growing up though, for like for the younger woman who can identify with you, is there a story that stands out where you felt less than?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So I guess I'm losing my words. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was in a science class. I don't know, like those teacher under the bus, but he was like, he was a pretty racist teacher. Like if there was a African-American or Hispanic in the class that would raise their hand, like he just wouldn't call on them. But then as soon as like a white student would raise their hand, he would call on them immediately. And so it was like pretty blatantly obvious, like something was off. And like when we would do projects, he would only go around to teams that didn't have students of color. It was really weird, especially because I went to a school in the inner city. So our school was like 40% Black and Hispanic. So it seemed like odd it wasn't like I was the only Hispanic girl in the room, basically. And then when I had gotten into Stanford, I don't really know how he found out because I wasn't like going around telling him or whatever, but he came up to me in the middle of class, like in front of everybody, and he was like, "Oh, I heard you got into Stanford." And I was like, "Oh yeah." He was like, "Oh, congrats." He was like, "It's too bad, like you won't be able to go because it's like really expensive." And it's just like, thought that was kind of weird. Like, I guess that wasn't directly correlated to my race, but it was kind of being like,
An assumption.
Like, yeah, an assumption like I couldn't afford. I don't know. It was just so, and it was in front of everybody, so that was kind of a weird moment. It was kind of embarrassing.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
Yeah, but a bunch of students and I actually talked to the principal and helped get him removed from the school. So that was his last year
he's gone
there. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole. You kind of glanced over it. I mean, that sounds like it was a pretty big deal. Was it a big deal in your life at the time?
Yeah, I think it was, and especially because I was a student. Like, I didn't turn in anything late, and I was prepared to take tests and things. But I think some other students that like would turn in work late, like he would accept late work from like white students, but not from Black or Hispanic students. So that was kind of weird because for the Black and Hispanic students, he'd be like, well, the work was late, so like I'm not going to take it. But then like right after, someone else would walk up and he'd be like, okay, yeah, it's fine. Like I'll accept it. So it was like, that was even harder. That was harder to fight for those students, I think. I think because I was one of the better students in the class, it was hard for him to justify the way he was treating me. But it was like sad seeing him justify the way he was treating these students that may have been struggling more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's a really fascinating example. And I always I like sharing those for anybody who's in those situations, that they can get through it, that they're able to make it somewhere great. And those people who aren't in your corner, there's always going to be those people who aren't in your corner. But that just sucks, man. That like you have, sorry to be sometimes I'll say like, that sucks, man. And I have to be careful when it comes to using man in terms of like gender, because I don't want anyone to think, I'm always like very PC.
Problem.
I don't want to be that person in any way. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And just to fill in anybody who's watching this. So Jasmine also, and I share this so that if anyone's interested in any of these things, they could reach out to you. Also she's in the Stanford Dollies, which I think I saw some stuff on your Instagram where you're like in the Dolly. Yeah, like you dance and like that's intense, right? The Dollies is like high profile, right, guys? Is that a big deal?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, like you're in the Dollies. Like that's a big deal. It's hard to get in the Dollies. Most people don't, right?
Right, most people don't, yes.
Right. You tried out for that. Did you get in right away?
Yeah, so you actually can only be a Dolly for 1 year. So I tried out my freshman year and then was on it for all my sophomore year, because there's only 5 girls, so they like to like rotate so more girls can get the opportunity. So yeah, nice. I just tried out once and made it.
Fun. What a great memory. And then you also are involved with, you do so much stuff. You really are.
Yeah.
You're a residence counselor for Stanford Collegiate Studies program and activities coordinator for that group as well. And you're a research assistant in the behavioral lab and in the pre-business association. And you were also, you do so much. Do you have time to like rest?
Yes.
Are you balanced, Jasmine?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty balanced. All the things that you mentioned, I don't do all of them like at the same time. So I think,
of course,
yeah, right. I like to do like different. I think I've only done a few activities like my whole time being at Stanford. So I kind of like to like do things for like maybe a year and then like move on to something else, because there's so many things at Stanford to like try out and opportunities to take advantage of. So I think that's why I've been like involved in a bunch of things in different pockets of time.
Yeah, and you seem to be successful. Like, what do you think that is? Like, how do you get what you want so frequently?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I think I've grown up with always this like go-getter attitude, like, and I'm really not afraid to fail. I think maybe sometimes people will look at me and be like, oh, she's really successful. That's because I don't like broadcast my failures. So like people don't know, like, good. I don't think many people broadcast like the things that didn't work out for them. And I think sometimes even when I'm like, there's no way this could possibly work out for me, I would still try and go get it and like see what happens. And like I feel like I put my all into everything. And
yeah. Can we play a game and just, can you share a few of those failures? I'd love for you all to play this game, because it's always fun for other students to see successful students share their failures. Was there anything that stands out that you didn't broadcast that hurt?
Yeah. I feel like the one that I kind of mentioned before was like not getting into the performing arts school the first time, because I think people at Stanford would probably consider me a pretty good dancer, because there's not like that many really good dancers that go to Stanford. So like there's only a few of us, but in like high school and growing up, I was like never the best dancer. I was like always one of like the weaker members of my team. I could like never get it together, and like not getting into that school, I was like, this really sucks. Like my one passion. Like I suck at it. Like I can't do anything else. And I like did not want to apply again to the school at all. I was like, I already failed once. Like,
you had to
yeah,
be in
you
front
have
of
to.
people.
Yeah, and the second year that I auditioned, so the first year that I auditioned, your grades played like a small role in if you're getting admitted or not. And the second year they didn't count at all. And I was like, well, grades was like, that was my one like edge that I had against the other students. Like I had really good grades. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm gonna get in, like forget this. But I still did it anyway. And literally when I walked into the meeting for auditioning, they were like, if you're an out of district transfer student, you have like less than 1% chance of getting in. I was like, well, that's me. Like this sucks. But my parents, they like pushed me to do it, and I did it anyway. And like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't go to that school. Like that was such a huge, awesome experience for me. So even if like there's less than 1% chance, and somebody tells you to your face that you're literally not going to get it, you can still go for it, and it could happen for you.
Well, I love that. I think that if you don't experience it, you don't know. And it doesn't mean that you're any less than if you don't get it. It just means you didn't get it, and you'll either get it in the future or you'll get something else.
Yeah.
And I think that attitude of you really wanted to go to Stanford, you wanted to do all of these things, and this worked out for you, but I have a strong feeling you're going to keep dreaming really big, and there's going to be things that don't work out as planned in the timeline that you set in front of you, but you're only going to learn and grow and find something more exciting or end up doing that thing in the future. So, I mean, you seem like you're really well balanced, and you know that, but just as someone who's like an expert in rejection, just remember that, like, if there's that thing that you really put your heart and soul into and it just doesn't turn out, just one more person in your corner. I'm happy to be that person too. It sounds like you have plenty of people. You don't need me, but for anybody else who hears that and sees that would be great. So Grayson, moving on to you. You are very involved with aerospace. We're going to get into that because you are definitely in a place where I'm curious to hear what you aspire to do with that. But also the fact that you are a beatboxer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, my hidden talent.
Did you include that in your application? Your beatboxing?
So on the application, there's like the arts portfolio, which Jasmine, I'm sure you turned in dance thing, didn't you? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I thought that you needed to have like a full professional like thing put together for it. And I play a lot of music and I like do a lot of stuff with that, but I just didn't include anything in the arts portfolio because I was like, I haven't done anything like professionally. And then I find out this beatboxer for another a cappella group actually, he turned in with his application a video of him beatboxing, and that helped his application. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I should have done that. But
you know what, dude? I think if you did that, they'd be like, we can't have two beatboxers.
Well, that guy's like so good. That guy's like a legend.
Was he your year?
No, he actually graduated this year. But he was the beatboxer for Jacob and I's other best friend, his group. And
so there's more than one, because you're in the Stanford Harmonics. It's an a cappella group, and I would imagine that's pretty competitive to get into.
Yeah, so a cappella in Stanford's pretty huge. There's definitely more than 10 a cappella groups.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Some are more competitive than others. And you kind of can gauge the competitiveness based on the number of auditions you get. And so my group has 15 people in it, and at any given year, we're accepting maybe 4 or 5 spots, like filling, a big part of the group, but we get somewhere around 130, 140 auditions every year. And, only 4 or 5 people get it. And so it's really competitive, especially amongst certain voice types that are more common.
And what are you?
So I got in as a bass, actually. I didn't even beatbox for my audition. That kind of happened later. But I auditioned as a bass and got in, luckily.
How low can you go?
See, I'm not exactly sure, but fairly low, I think.
You get that big, because there's some of those songs where everything stops and then they just have the
bass drop. Yeah, I think I have a lower than average speaking voice, but not any super low like speaking voice. I kind of have to push myself to get down that low.
Yeah, because I would say you talk like maybe you talk like a tenor more so, or like a baritone. You got just a general. You don't have a bass. You don't have a big. You can't be doing movie.
Right. I think I'm more in the baritone range. to be honest. And but I reach into the tenor range. I can sing tenor parts. I've sang tenor parts for the group, and I primarily sang bass parts for the group until I started beatboxing. So I think you're right there. I'm in the baritone range.
Now, this is a question. I ask the questions that people are thinking. Sometimes they're not the questions I want to ask, but they're important questions. So being in the Stanford Harmonics, do you find that people are very interested romantically in you? Do you find people pursuing you, going after you? And maybe with your permission, I'd like to ask Jacob to tell me, because you are roommates and you do have a history of friendship. With your permission, may I ask Jacob that?
Yeah, sure. I trust this man.
Yeah, Grayson's a killer with the ladies. Not gonna lie.
Oh my God.
It feels like our freshman year, especially, like every couple weeks, he'd be talking to someone else. I'm like, how do you even meet these people? And like girls have come up to him after performances. Grayson, you know what I'm talking about, especially at Coho.
Yeah.
What's Coho?
Coffee house.
So Stanford has this nice habit of shortening everything. So like Florence Moore becomes Flomo, and then the coffee house becomes Coho. And so like they have open mic nights, and Grayson performed there, and like because of his beautiful singing, he has received much attention. Yes.
Yeah, I bet that's
an exaggeration, but I appreciate it, Jacob.
No, that's nice. And Jacob hangs out with you, so other people will come around, and Jacob gets to engage in that conversation as well, right, Jacob?
Yeah, it's been beneficial to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very helpful. What is well, I've got I'm torn whether I want to talk about love or I want to go back to the aerospace piece. But you know what? Let's just take a tangent, okay? And let's just talk about love in Stanford. Let's talk about the social life. Let's talk about a Saturday night. Let's talk about what people are doing. So tell me, what is it like? What's the nightlife like? You guys are in fraternities as well, and I know that you're in a sorority, so you've got the Greek piece. So walk me through a Saturday night and give me a sense of what someone would expect and the choices they can make.
So I think the party scene at Stanford is similar to other colleges. I'd say it's definitely not as intense as public schools, both, with Greek life and just party life in general. But I know that a large portion of the student body actually doesn't partake in partying at all too. Like there's not really a pressure to do that. But if that is something that is your flavor, like if that's something you want to be doing on weekends, like there are plenty of places for that to happen. All housed fraternities are actually required to throw at least one all-campus party per quarter, meaning that there's no invites, no exclusivity, and that's to promote campus inclusivity. And so every fraternity that's housed, which how many fraternities are housed, Jacob? Like maybe 5 or something like that. Yeah. And then most fraternities actually throw parties, and most houses actually, there's also houses that are not Greek affiliated that people draw into that are cultural themed or other themes, and those houses also throw parties. And so most weekends, pretty much every weekend, you have no problem finding a place to be if you want to go there.
Now, if you're someone who isn't a Greek person and you're like, I would never go Greek, what percentage of students roughly are in fraternities and sororities at Stanford?
I think it's a quarter, right, guys? It's like a quarter.
That sounds right.
I think a quarter of all students go Greek, but Greek life is actually very small at Stanford compared to most places. For example, our fraternity, Deke, is not housed at Stanford. And it's actually a completely different dynamic than actually AFE is not housed either. So like, it's just a different dynamic than housed fraternities and sororities. And I think a lot of people who go Greek wanted to go Greek the entire time, but then a large amount also go Greek without thinking that was something they wanted to do. Which is cool. It's just something you can explore and figure out for yourself.
Was that your intention, Jasmine?
Always to go Greek. Actually, I think because I grew up in Texas, so my friends in high school were like preparing their sorority portfolios like in senior year. So like that was also something I was interested in. Like it wasn't something that I thought that I like had to do or else I like wouldn't be happy. So I did end up joining. I didn't spend as much time with Alpha Phi as I maybe thought I would, just because I was involved in a lot of other things that I was like more passionate about. So I'm not like 100% sure if I'll continue to stay in it. for the rest of the time being at Stanford. But I think even if you're not in Greek life, I think you can still participate in it. Like you can still go to events and parties like with friends and stuff. So, but yeah, I think from the beginning, like I always wanted to be in it, at least just like see what it was about.
Yeah, well, that's a theme with you, is that you try it out and you like it, and then you do something else, and that's I think a really wonderful quality. You don't have to just do one thing forever. You can do something and see how it feels, and then you can experience something else. So and to do it in a safe way, which is interesting though, because whenever I have these conversations, I really try to like get into people's like world. That I'm still a little stuck, Jasmine, on the professor piece, because you seem to be someone who goes after what you want and you put yourself in those vulnerable places. But when someone's in a higher status role, like in that situation where you may make a mistake or be judged in some way, is that an area where there's vulnerability, or am I just analyzing you too deeply, too fast?
Yeah, no, you're good. I only went to professors like my first and second quarter ever at Stanford, and I haven't gone to any professor office hours of the department that I'm actually majoring in. So I'm sure like once I like get into classes that are smaller and like a bit more intimate, then I'll like be more comfortable with the professors. I mean, just over time, like even like I've been better at like asking questions in class and things like that. But I had one bad experience in a professor office hour my winter quarter of freshman year that just like really got me down. And so I think after that, I needed like a break for a quarter or two.
What happened?
From like seeing professors. So
names.
Yeah, so I went to this professor for a big intro class that I was in, and I had just gotten like a 50 on the midterm or something. And I had studied really hard, and I was like, I had studied so hard, but this class was like really hard for me. But I was going to office hours, I was going to the TAs, I was like asking for friends. So I like felt like I was doing everything I was supposed to do, but like still doing really horribly. And so I went to professor his office hours, and I was like, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Like, is there anything else I should be doing? Like any resources? And he was like, well, did you take this subject in high school? And I said like, yes, I took it in high school, but I went to like a high school in the inner city. Like academics wasn't our like strong suit. Like as well as like, I think like 100% of the people in this class had failed the AP test because the teacher just wasn't very strong. So I was basically starting from square one in this intro class, and he was like, oh, well, like if you don't have like any experience, like you should get a B- at best. Like you're doing fine. I was like, what? Like, and he was like, yeah, he was like, I wouldn't expect a student like you to do better than a B-. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? And so like, I felt like I worked so hard, and then I got a B- in that class, which was like,
oh, you actually got a B-.
Yeah. And that to this day, that's still my lowest grade in the class I've ever gotten at Stanford, but it just felt horrible for him telling me like, no, like failing is what you're supposed to be doing. Like that's where you are. And I was like, this is crazy. Like this was like the first intro class to like this subject. And I was like, this is so, like, I just felt so beaten down by that experience. Yeah. And like, and I literally, I just didn't know what to do. I felt really lost for just the rest of the class. Cause I was like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not working out, but apparently like there's something else I can do.
It's kind of like you were given permission to not have to, in a sense it was a gift, but not a gift you wanted and not in alignment with what you're used to.
Yeah.
So like I think those experiences are really humbling and interesting. Thanks for that. Really cool. Gosh, you guys have so many interesting things. Okay. So Grayson, I know I got sidetracked with the ladies. You are you're in aerospace, and I never mentioned it. I'm very careful when I say, who somebody's interested in. When it comes to LGBTQ, when it comes to diversity and that, what's the vibe on Stanford's campus in terms of acceptance and in that piece?
I think it's very inclusive. I mean, I came from an area of the country that stuff is not really talked about and not really accepted, which is sad. But going to Stanford, it was amazing to see that people are very, very comfortable with the identities for the most part. Of course, there's still progress to be made, and it's not perfect. But I think Stanford, in the grand scheme of things in this country, Stanford's definitely more on the progressive end, where people are more comfortable with their gender identity and their sexual orientation and being open about it, which is great to see. That's just my experience, though. I don't know if you guys think anything.
Has that been for that student who's looking at LGBTQ friendly schools. It certainly sounds like it would be one. When it comes to the aerospace piece, because I want to follow your career, man. I want to know where this goes. What's the dream?
So, obviously the dream would be an astronaut, but I don't set my bar so unreasonably high. That's just the thing that I'd be reaching for my entire life,
So you want to be an astronaut?
Ideally, that would be perfect, but
that's great. When did you decide this? How old were you?
I was like last year old.
Oh, so it's not like you were 5 and like making rocket ships out of cardboard boxes.
Well, I always thought that when I was younger, I always kind of limited myself and was like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's a childish dream to be having. But then now I'm here. I'm like at Stanford studying aeroastro, and like,
dude,
I'm realizing that maybe it's not as far off. Like, right now, I'm in the best position that I could be in pursuit of that goal. And
right.
So I kind of reevaluated what I wanted to do. And I did research last summer, and I realized that, like, getting a doctorate is not for me. I do not want to do research for a super long time because that's just not my personality. And I don't know. That's just the dream.
That's great. You know what? So you'll either be an astronaut or you won't. And if you're an astronaut, that'd be really cool because, now we have a relationship. And I don't want it to be about me, but that's just so cool. It's I'm like really into. Did you watch the last rocket launch with? I'm sure you did with Doug and what is it? Dave, the two dudes, Bob and Dave, Bob and Doug, Bob and Doug. Sorry, right. But are you an Elon Musk person? Are you a SpaceX guy, or are you like? Was it Blue Horizons? I
don't know. I tend not to idolize individuals. Like, nice. I really respect what he's done, really respect what his company's done. But I think
don't answer this because I don't want this to come. I'm going to talk over you. Here's what I'm going to do. I don't want you to answer this question because I don't want this to be out there, right? Because I don't want you to. I don't want someone to interpret it as anything, in any way. Unless you still want to answer it. That's kind of rude, but
no. I mean, it's fine. I just think I pursue my own goals, and I respect what's been done beforehand. And like, he's done some crazy cool stuff with SpaceX. Like, SpaceX has done things that a lot of aerospace companies and NASA have just like had previously discounted as not possible. But ultimately, I'll be honest. If I find a job that piques my own interests, I don't necessarily need a job that has all the clout in the world, or like that everyone's like crazy about, or makes the most money. Like, I don't really care. I'm interested in personal happiness. Like, does this fill my interests, and like, am I useful to society, and am I happy is like the biggest things to me. And so, if I end up working at SpaceX, that would be cool. But if I end up working at NASA or anywhere else, like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, I really don't have a preference, like, for sure. It's more like I want to be working on something that I can feel is important, that I'm contributing, and that ultimately makes me happy personally.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful to have that compass to guide you, because clearly it's worked, and it will continue to work, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see. If I get too impressed by that, I didn't mean to get overly excited. I think being an engineer is incredible. I think anything that anyone does that's in alignment with who they are is absolutely, the mission. That's the thing of how can you get to that place and embody that. You're the 43rd Stanford tree. Is that public knowledge?
Yeah, that is. Yep. It's not like other mascots where you have to keep it a secret. I can wear it.
So you walk around as the tree. And then what's been your best memory as the tree?
So I haven't been tree for that long. So unfortunately, tree and the dollies are kind of like a thing together. And Jasmine's dolly year was like before my tree year. So I haven't been able to be tree very long because I just got it winter quarter, and then COVID happened and spring quarter went out the window. But I was able to go to Las Vegas with Jasmine and the other dollies for the women's Pac-12 basketball championship, and that was really fun doing that. It was like, Jasmine can attest, it was a really great time.
That had to be awesome. That's a cool thing to do. How do you get to be the tree, and how many trees are there?
So there's only one tree. I am the only tree right now. And it's always been that way since the 70s, is that there's one person who is the tree, that is the tree at every event. And so I'll be expected to go to every football game that's home, and like every basketball, volleyball game. and raffles.
So we're going to
Jasmine understands anything Jasmine would be at, I would be at.
Yeah.
Like the policy.
Right, the tree and the dolly. And then was there like a tree? Was there like a ceremony where someone handed you the tree? Was there something very beautiful?
Well, so like there's a thing called Tree Week, which is like the audition process that all mascots kind of have an audition process, right? But Tree Week is different in the way that you're trying to basically demonstrate that your personality is correct for the tree, I guess, by doing funny things in public and dumb things in public. It's just fun. And then the tree has the ultimate decision to pick. Can I talk?
Can you talk as a tree? Are you allowed to talk when you're a tree?
I have literally no rules. The rules, I make the rules. So like some trees have decided in the past actually that they didn't want to talk in the tree, which is, that's their decision. I personally enjoy interacting with people enough that I'm just like talking to people in the tree is actually very fun and entertaining for me. Because people like really love the tree and the personality and the vibes it embodies. And so at Pac-12s, like I was running around talking to a bunch of people in the crowd and stuff, and it was just good fun.
And you can sing as a tree too?
I could do that. Yeah, I guess I could.
Because I would think that would be cool if you're this. And the tree, the current tree chooses the new tree?
Yeah. So whenever I decide to hand it down, I will hand it down to the next person. I'll choose that person personally.
Is there ever any, when someone knows they're the tree, is there ever any backroom, conversation? Is it just sacred that you don't talk about wanting to be the tree? How does one position oneself to be the next tree?
So, I mean, I didn't really have it on my radar at all. Even this last year, I mean, I took 18 units the quarter that I ran for tree, which is just like a lot. Like I shouldn't have done that. But to be fair, I didn't know that I wanted to run for tree until like right before the audition process started. I just had a friend who's in Deke with us just be like, "Hey, Grayson, I think you'd be a good tree." I was like, "Oh, all right, I might look into it." And then I ended up going for it and I ended up getting it. So that's really cool. But
Jacob, do you remember the moment Grayson decided to run for tree?
Oh yeah, like our friend who was also our freshman RA, funnily enough, was he's in the band, and the band and the tree are like kind of the same entity in a way. And he was just like, "Hey Grayson, you like to do dumb stuff in public. How would you like to do that like as the face of Stanford?" And Grayson was just like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And like just kind of it just slowly started to consume his life for the next couple of weeks.
Wow. Jasmine, is that impressive that Grayson is the tree? Is that a big honor?
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. The dollies get to kind of watch the audition process and like see it unfold, even like stuff that the public doesn't always get to see. So it was exciting to go through it, like on the sidelines.
Did you think he was going to be the tree?
I actually, in the beginning, I honestly didn't think he was going to, because I didn't know how serious he was about it, because he like had just decided kind of on a whim. But then as the week progressed, like I knew that he was going to be it. Like it became evident that he was the strongest one.
It was clear. I like to hear about the tree. I got lost in the whole tree thing, but like that's just the nuances of like being there and being present and deciding you want to be the tree and go after that. Now, Jacob, you're an RA, is that right?
Yes.
You're a new
student next year.
Oh, next year you're going to be an RA, and you're a new student orientation volunteer. So you're totally friendly. You want to help people. Why is it that you want to help people so badly?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to whenever I came freshman year, I was just like so lost, and campus is massive. I'm sure Grayson and Jasmine can also speak to like getting lost on campus. And I didn't know anyone. It was just like kind of nice because the RAs get these flashcards of our faces, or of their residents' faces and names, and so they'll have it all memorized when freshmen get on campus. And so it was really nice to not know anyone on this huge campus and just like walk up to the table to check in, and they announce, "Hey, it's Jacob," or whatever, and like everyone will start cheering, and it's like this just very positive attitude.
And that makes you feel like welcome and special, and you love doing that. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm sure that's challenging to do to get the position. Do you get free room and board? What type of perk do you get as a RA?
So there is a stipend, and then I believe there is a discount on room and board. I'm not entirely sure. The whole RA cycle for this year has been messed up because you usually get all that information on campus in spring quarter. And as Grayson mentioned earlier, spring quarter kind of went out the window. So we're still trying to hear back on a lot of things, especially like trainings. There is like a month worth of training to do, and you usually do half of it in spring quarter. And so we're waiting to hear about like when we're actually going to do that.
Yeah, now that piece, and I'm going to start wrapping things up, and you've been so generous, all of you, with your time, and I'm just so grateful that we can be here. When it comes to students who are approaching the fall, who are going to college, regardless of where they're going, what advice can you offer them, students who are going to be doing a lot of online learning, a lot of distance learning, who really want to be part of a community? How do you guide them? What words can you offer? Any tips or strategies?
Yeah, so I would say, one, just keep an open mind, because like this is new to everyone, and so even if it's something that you don't think you might enjoy at first, like keep an open mind to that. And I have heard that especially a lot of so Stanford in particular, for the spring quarter, freshmen kept their RAs, and they like did like online stuff together. And even I assume that a lot of schools will have a system like that, where even if you are not in person with your RAs, you'll like get these people that you can talk to. And I would just say, like, feel free to ask them questions, because they'll definitely have more than one person with like more than one resident, and like reach out to those other people talking to the same RA, because like these are the people that even if you do later move in, these are the people that you're going to be living with. And so it's just like should be this great experience to get to know them, even if it is in an online format. And
that's what you're doing. You're in touch with some of the students already? No,
not yet. So since Frosh have been, so Stanford, we call freshmen Frosh. I will say Frosh a lot. So Frosh have been more or less guaranteed housing for the fall. And so you'll actually meet your RA. They'll meet their RA and their roommates and everyone else in the dorm that day.
Okay. So that's different than in the past?
No, that'll be the exact same.
Okay. So at least that's the same. Do either of you, Grayson or Jasmine, do you have any advice for the class of 2020, or now I should say the class of 2024, 2023, 2020? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Students who are going to be freshmen in college, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I guess I would say, I mean, like keeping an open mind, like I would say try and like even get out there more, and like try and join communities that you may or may not like, because I feel like with the online format, an advantage is that it's super easy to just like wherever you are, just log on, like if a community is having an event or like a meet and greet or stuff like that. Like I know the organizations that I'm a part of are working super hard this summer to try and transition to an online format that is successful for all of its current and new members. So I'm sure other schools too, like people are working hard to try and transition to that format. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it may be even a little easier to get yourself out there and like go to different events, just because it's like all from your laptop versus like having to like physically go to all these different places. So that's one thing you can use to your advantage.
Right. Do you have anything to add, Grayson?
I was just going to say, just have a positive mindset and be optimistic, because like no one asked for the situation, like no one expected the situation that's going forward. But it's something you can directly influence, is how you intake that information. That, if you look at the glass as half full instead of half empty, and look at this situation that's very strange and very unconventional as an opportunity instead of, a detriment, you might end up having a better time. I think that's just some good life advice, actually, not just applicable just to this, is just look at everything as an opportunity instead of an obstacle. And you'll end up just enjoying yourself a lot more and moving forward, I think, a lot better than if you were more pessimistic, which is, easier said than done, but I think it's important.
But being present and accepting what comes our way. To wrap this up, I would love for each of you just to offer freshman high school you some advice. Jacob, I know you've been on a crazy journey. It's been a wild journey from thinking you want to do one thing, changing your major. You're now a computer science major, right? And you love that. I wanted to include this as well. Before we started the live, you were telling me about how you help young kids code, and you just have a great love for what you do. And it's awesome that you discovered that. And it sounds like it's been a really wonderful journey, and you keep giving and giving, and all you want to do, or at least one of the things that you love doing, is helping. So if you can go back and help you, if you could help freshman you in high school, what would you tell you? Something that maybe you worried about too much that you didn't need to worry about, that would have provided you a little more comfort?
I think freshman high school me worried way too much about college. It was like 4 years away. And because of that, I think I was already trying to like pack my resume with these like well-rounded activities. And so my word of advice would be to really just follow the things that you're passionate about. So like if you really love a sport, just play that sport all the time, because like might be one of the last opportunities that you get to really just throw your time wholeheartedly into that thing that you're passionate about. And schools will also recognize if you're putting a lot of time into something that you're passionate about, and they'll reward you for that.
Great. Grayson, what do you have to say? What advice would you give you?
I would just say, branch out. Like, don't be afraid to try new things. You never know if you like something if you don't try it. So you might as well try it. And even if like Jasmine's been doing, if you find out you don't like it, like, you don't have to do it anymore. But you should never not try something just because you're afraid of the what ifs. You should branch out and do things. Great.
And Jasmine, what would you tell you?
Yeah, I think similar to what Jacob said, I would say like don't quit on your passions, because I think when I was a freshman and then after not getting into Booker T, I was like completely ready to just quit dance forever, even though I liked it so much, and just like focus on school, because I was like, I want to get into a good college. Like they care about like taking a lot of AP classes, like doing super well in school, and like I just think that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think schools, they want you to pursue your passions, and they value you pursuing your passions over like taking one extra AP class when you're doing well in like all of your other classes. So I would tell myself to like not be so quick to give up on my passions, just because I don't think it would look impressive, I guess, of me as a student, when that's just really not true. I think especially now, because schools are so competitive, like all the applications are reviewed very holistically, like who you are as a person, like not because like thousands and thousands of applicants have perfect grades, perfect scores. Like that's just like really not what it's about. I mean, you should pursue your passions, like, yes, just because you want to, because that's the thing you love to do. But even in the end, like that'll end up helping you more in the long run.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's great advice. And all three of you are so generous. If a student has a question about anything we've discussed, any of the things you're involved with, whether they're in high school or in their college careers, are you cool with them reaching out to you? Like through Instagram or through like legitimately? Like I know you're okay with people reaching out, and you'll get back to them maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They should also follow the Tree account. I'm just going to plug that. Shameless plug. Follow at the Stanford Tree.
Yeah, thank you.
The Tree account. Oh yeah, we're going to put a link to the Tree. I'm so excited to follow this. I find it all fascinating. I think each of you, I could talk to you for another hour or 2 hours. That would just be too long to take up all of your time. But I just love talking to you. I think you're so interesting, and I'm just so grateful to have this chance to get to know you. The thing that gives me so much joy is having a chance to just meet really interesting people from interesting places who do things that create light and love, and I'm so grateful to have that chance. So thanks for being so generous, and if I could ever be a resource in any way, let me know. And for anybody who's watching this, you have wonderful people who can be a resource and be in your corner. So for everybody who's been tuning in, thank you so much for participating in this college conversation with Stanford University. I'm Harlan Cohen. This has been Before College TV Live. Thanks, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, everybody.